If you've ever heard of the law of attraction, you've probably also heard of Esther Hicks and her channeled entity known as Abraham. Esther Hicks has literally convinced millions of people that she can channel source energy, which is basically all of the knowledge of the universe, and for whatever reason has chosen to name this entity Abraham. This woman has a net worth of $10 million thanks to her books, her appearances, and even her cruises, where she invites people to come ask Abraham questions and she will channel the answer for them from source energy. But what is the real story behind these teachings? Are they harmless tools for self-improvement, or could they be more dangerous than they appear? In today's video, we are diving deep into the origins of Esther Hicks, her connection to Abraham, and why some critics are concerned about the psychological impact of the law of attraction. So sit back, relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh air in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Erin, and I am fascinated by all things cult, true crime, and unique spiritual practices. I post at least 2 videos like this every week, so please consider subscribing if you like this sort of thing too. I also have a Patreon and a membership, and just released some merch, which feels so weird to say, but I think it'll be fun, it'll be cute, and it's going to be 10% off all the way up until Christmas. So if you want a little, branded merch, please consider purchasing something. And also, every single Christmas season or holiday season, I like to feature a different single parent on my channel. What happens is a single parent will send me their Amazon wish list and a little bit of information about their life or their children. And then I will share their Amazon wish list for my wonderful viewers like you to purchase some of the items for them. So if you are a single parent, please email me your Amazon wish list and a little bit about yourself to letfresherin@gmail.com. So let's quickly meet our very first single parent of the year. So this single parent's name is Laura. She says, "Hello, my name is Laura. I recently found your channel and could not be happier. I'm glad you're here, Laura. True crime, cults, conspiracy, glitch in the matrix, I love it all. Gets my brain going. Anywho, the point of my email. I am a single mother, and yes, Christmas this year especially has been a struggle. I usually have a bit of savings come this time of year, but that has just not been possible. I am buying one thing at a time, starting from the thing they seem most excited about, which always seems to be the most expensive thing. I want to give them the best. I need to brag on my kids for just a second. Justice is 8 years old, going on 18. She wakes up to her own alarm every morning and helps me get her brother out the door as well. Aw. In all honesty, I couldn't do it without her. Her maturity and helpfulness frees up my hands to help her little brother. She helps me without complaint and for the most part does what she knows I expect of her. When she was very young, right after I had her brother, I said to her, 'I need your help, babes. Work with me, not against me. We are a team.' She took that seriously and has been my super helper ever since. I'm so proud to be her mother. She is kind, artistic, and a little fashionista." And there are a couple photos. I'm going to kind of cover up their faces just for protection, but they're really cute. Your kids are so cute. She goes on to say, "Legend is my boy. He is 5 years old. I never knew I needed boy love. I thought of myself as a girl mom, but my little gentleman has shattered that illusion. He opens doors for myself and others, pulls out chairs, gotta watch his mood or you may end up on the floor if he's feeling mischievous." Oh, that's so cute. Legend is a builder tinker that wants to understand why the world works the way it does. I'm happy to have found you. If you can help me make these great kids' Christmas awesome, I would be so grateful. I work 6 days a week and it just still isn't enough right now. I pray there's some relief soon. I know a lot of people are struggling. I'm struggling, but we're happy and healthy together. It would relieve a bit of my mom guilt to be able to give them a sliver of the happiness they give me daily. Thank you for your consideration. Oh, that's so sweet. This is so great. Aw, your family is so beautiful. She is a little fashionista. I love that. So, Laura, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing a bit about your wonderful children. The Amazon wish list is going to be down in the description and in that pinned comment down below for easy clicking. So please, if you are able this year, I know it's really difficult, but please consider purchasing an item for her and her children. Thank you guys so much for your support. And Laura, thank you for writing in and sharing your story. So with all of that being said, let's jump right in. Esther Hicks' early life is a little enigmatic because she's really shared very few personal details about her formative years or her background before her spiritual journey began. But what we do know is that she was born on March 5th, 1948 in the small town of Colville, Utah. She grew up in a rural, modest environment that was pretty typical of mid-20th century America. Colville, which is located in Summit County, is a tight-knit community known for its scenic landscapes and quiet, small-town charm, but not necessarily as a hub of metaphysical or even spiritual exploration. Esther's upbringing has been described as ordinary and unremarkable, with no significant indicators of the spiritual path she would later take. So this leaves a lot of her early life open to speculation. Her educational background also remains unknown, and she didn't really become publicly associated with intellectual or spiritual pursuits, really, until she met her second husband. So the lack of documented influence from her early years suggests that her eventual connection with Abraham and the metaphysical world came as this dramatic shift rather than a natural evolution of lifelong interests. To me, that sounds like maybe it was a money grab, but who knows? Before her transformative meeting with Jerry Hicks, her would-be husband, Esther led a relatively conventional life. She married her first husband at 20 years old and then had 2 daughters, and embraced the traditional roles of wife and mother. Her life trajectory at the time was pretty typical for women in rural America, revolving around family and practical concerns rather than anything spiritual or philosophical. So it wasn't until Esther met Jerry Hicks in the late 1970s that her life began to pivot towards the extraordinary. Esther Hicks' meeting with Jerry Hicks in the late 1970s was a turning point in her life, fundamentally altering the trajectory of her personal and her professional path. At the time, Esther was still married to her first husband, Richard Greer. Her marriage to Greer was stable, but it didn't seem to foster the intellectual or spiritual growth that she would later pursue. So Jerry Hicks was this dynamic and charismatic figure, and he was significantly older than Esther and had a very colorful past that included working as a circus acrobat in Cuba. He was a comedian and was even a successful Amway distributor. And if you don't know, Amway is one of the biggest MLMs in history. It might be like the first MLM, and it is so culty. And anytime I hear anyone who is a cult leader or a spiritual channeler who has a background in an MLM, I'm like, oh, they fully know that they're exploitative. But that's totally just my opinion. But Jerry's eclectic life experiences and fascination with the metaphysical and self-help teachings brought a sense of adventure and depth to his personality that Esther really enjoyed. Allegedly, when Esther and Jerry met in the mid-1970s, their connection was immediate and profound. Jerry's passion for self-improvement and metaphysics captivated Esther, and their shared interests in exploring life's mysteries quickly created a strong bond. And their relationship developed rapidly. And Esther began to see Jerry not only as a romantic partner, but also as a mentor and a guide into a world of spiritual exploration that she had never previously considered. Esther's decision to leave her husband Richard for Jerry was not only a very significant personal choice, but also a symbolic departure from her conventional life. It is very known that her relationship with Jerry introduced her to an entirely new way of thinking. Jerry's intellectual and metaphysical pursuits likely contrasted very sharply with her life at the time, and that made him a very magnetic figure to her. So she ended up leaving her husband and got married to Jerry in 1980, and this marked the beginning of a partnership that would not only reshape Esther's life, but also lead to their eventual prominence in the spiritual and self-help worlds. So Jerry's influence on Esther clearly extended beyond a romantic relationship. He was the one that introduced her to a variety of self-help and metaphysical teachings, which served as a foundation for their later work. Among the key texts they explored were Jane Roberts' Seth material. So Jane Roberts is this well-known channeler who communicated messages from someone named Seth, a non-physical entity. And Seth's teachings, why is his name Seth? Seth, Abraham, I don't know, like Seth just seems like the most Chad name. Like when I think of a frat boy named Chad, I'm like, and that's his best friend Seth, not, this is Seth, my non-physical entity that I am channeling to provide guidance and wisdom. But anyways, Seth's teachings emphasize the power of thought in shaping reality, and this is a concept that really resonated strongly with Jerry and also Esther's channeling of Abraham. They also really loved Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which is a cornerstone of self-help literature. And this work focuses on the principles of success and the role of mindset in achieving one's goals. So this reinforced the idea of individual empowerment, and this is a theme that's also central to Esther and Jerry's teachings. So just like every other cult leader we talk about, it's not like these teachings are just showing up in Esther and Jerry's life. They've basically been on a self-help path, and they've picked and chosen different beliefs from different writers, from different spiritual practitioners in order to create their own smorgasbord or mishmash of different spiritual practices so that they appear to have come up with something unique. So it was these early quote-unquote explorations that laid the groundwork for what would later become the teachings of Abraham. So the couple's shared journey into meditation and spiritual practices did begin as a personal quest, but it soon evolved into something much larger. And with Jerry's encouragement and belief in Esther's intuitive abilities, this led to her eventually channeling Abraham, this unseen entity. Now, Jerry often served as the public face of their work. He managed logistics, promoted the books and the workshops, and guided Esther as she developed her role as the channel for Abraham. So they're kind of creating this trio. So you think of what a trio like this kind of represents in a lot of religions. You have like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I feel like in this you have Jerry, Esther, and then the Holy Spirit being Abraham. And I think that this subconsciously, if you're someone that has been kind of indoctrinated or within the church or within any religion that has that like trio of entities that they're all one entity, but they're still three individual beings, or however you look at it. It's almost like this subconscious trust that you would have in Esther and Abraham because you're already thinking of like the divine being in a trio sort of function to offer guidance and wisdom. So I want to preface this next bit with saying meditation can be an incredible tool. It doesn't necessarily work for everyone across the board, according to some science, but it can be a fantastic tool to get yourself centered, regulate your nervous system. I'm someone who meditates every morning. It clears my head. It sets me up for the day. And it keeps me very, very grounded. Sometimes if I'm in some kind of like anxiety spiral, meditation can really help me just slow down and recognize that I don't need to take things as seriously as I'm taking them and understand that anxiety is just kind of lying to me. However, in spiritual spaces, the overdoing of meditation for like hours and hours and hours can, and I'm not saying across the board, but it can actually be detrimental to your mental health. There have been studies that have said that intense meditative practices can lead to a bit of a delusion, like not being able to recognize what is true and what is false, what is an idea or your imagination playing tricks on you while you're meditating versus a channeled message or some kind of vision that you think you're having because you're meditating. I feel like oftentimes these gurus kind of conflate having a vision with, no, that's just your imagination because your mind is clear and now you're kind of like envisioning different things. I don't know how to say that more effectively right now, but going into this channeling of entities discussion, I just wanted to bring that up because it's something we've talked about in videos previously, especially when it comes to meditators. All of that to say, in 1985, Esther Hicks had an experience during a meditation that profoundly altered the course of her life and career. This pivotal moment marked the emergence of Abraham, which she describes as a collective of non-physical entities who refer to themselves as infinite intelligence. Through Esther, Abraham delivers spiritual teachings designed to help individuals understand and apply universal laws, especially and probably most specifically the law of attraction. So Esther Hicks' first contact with Abraham was unplanned and, as she describes it, was somewhat unexpected. She says that she and her husband Jerry had been exploring many metaphysical teachings and practices, and she began experimenting with meditation, which was a practice that she apparently had not previously engaged in. So she says that during one meditation, she began to feel a distinct and benevolent presence. And it wasn't just one entity, it was a collection of entities, plural entities. And they identified themselves as Abraham, so a singular entity, and then communicated messages through thoughts, feelings, and some kind of inner voice, which to me, I'm like, okay, so you're having thoughts, but I'm also approaching this from maybe a little bit of a bias, but we're just going to keep on moving. So apparently at first, the communication was nonverbal, but over time, it became more clear and more structured. And Abraham expressed a desire to teach universal principles about energy, vibration, and manifestation. So Esther describes Abraham as spiritual teachers. They exist in this non-physical realm and convey wisdom that should empower individuals to create their own realities. Abraham emphasizes that their messages are accessible to everyone, and Esther is just serving as their channel. According to Abraham, their purpose is to help humanity align with the natural laws of the universe so that they may live joyful and abundant lives. So the teachings of Abraham focus heavily on the law of attraction, the idea that like attracts like, that individuals are drawing into their lives experiences that match their vibrational frequency. And the only way to get on a higher vibrational frequency is by feeling good all of the time and never feeling bad. If you feel bad, that means that you're going to attract bad things into your life. So you can kind of see how this could get a little stressful for someone with, anxiety like me. Speaking from experience, the law of attraction, when I was trying to practice it and kind of believed in it, caused me so much pain and suffering because I thought that anytime I had a bad thought or an intrusive thought, it meant that it was going to happen and that I was going to get in trouble or get hurt or something bad was going to happen to someone I loved. For me, it was very detrimental to my mental health. Do I think there are ways to practice law of attraction so that you just help your mindset and believe in yourself more and can take inspired action? Absolutely. But I think if you get too ingrained in anything, it can be dangerous. Abraham encouraged that everybody maintain a positive emotional state because that positive emotional state will align an individual with their desires, and that will make it easier to manifest them. They also believe that each person has the power to shape their reality through deliberate focus and emotional clarity. So when Esther was first channeling Abraham, apparently she initially hesitated to embrace her role as the channeler because the concept was so unfamiliar and intimidating. But thanks to Jerry and his unwavering support and encouragement, she gained confidence. Or maybe they had private conversations about how this would be like a crazy money grab, but that's purely my speculation. So when she's channeling Abraham, Esther enters this very relaxed and meditative state. Her voice and her mannerisms change. She adopts a calm and deliberate tone and delivers these messages. So those who witness these sessions often describe her as radiating a sense of clarity and compassion. And she insists that channeling Abraham is not mystical or an exclusive phenomenon. She maintains that everyone has access to this type of guidance by tuning into their own inner being or higher self. Her role is simply to articulate the messages in a way that is clear and relatable to others. And yet she still, like a lot of cult leaders, creates her own language. She talks a lot about like the vortex and upsets and things like that. Being in contrast to what you desire is going to keep you from the thing you desire. So there is an element to the culty linguistics when it comes to Abraham and Esther Hicks. And very conveniently, Esther Hicks describes Abraham as embodying the purest form of love and wisdom that is completely non-denominational. These spirit guides have no tie to any one religion, so they're literally accessible to every single human being. How convenient that you have something for everyone to sell to the millions of people that follow you. They're not tied to any doctrine or system, but they claim to focus on universal truths that apply to all beings. So Abraham refers to themselves as infinite intelligence, a term that kind of underscores their role as a source of timeless wisdom and insight. It reminds me of like someone claiming they have access to the Akashic records, which is basically knowledge of every single thing and every single thought and every single feeling that has ever been thought or felt throughout history or will ever be thought or felt in the future. So I just don't know if I buy it. And this intelligence is said to be connected to the same universal energy that governs literally everything. So, of course, again, it's accessible to everyone. And there's this huge emphasis on collective consciousness. Like we are all a part of something bigger and we are all connected subconsciously or energetically. And this is supported by the idea that Abraham is not just a single entity, but rather a group or collection of spiritual beings who share this unified purpose. So Esther often likens her consciousness to like a stream of energy or thought, which she then tunes into during channeling sessions. So Esther, multiple times a year, will travel around the globe and invite people to come witness her enter her channeling. So she will literally stand like up on a stage in front of hundreds of people, and she will randomly ask people to ask her questions, and as Abraham, she will then answer those questions. She also has books, she has a YouTube channel, she has cruises that she goes on, and these sessions, whether they're workshops or a cruise or a video, they're meant to offer a higher vibrational experience and to gain wisdom from this entity. And these are not cheap. Like, she's asking for significant amounts of money, but, you know, it's worth it if you're going to raise your vibration so that then you can attract all the things that you want. So during these channeling sessions, Esther enters a deeply relaxed and meditative states. She describes this process as quieting of the mind, and this allows her to receive and articulate Abraham's message. When Abraham speaks through Esther, her voice becomes slightly more deliberate, and those mannerisms change. Many describe her delivery as calm, confident, and compassionate, with a tone that feels both authoritative and soothing.
We're not whispering words that she's repeating. We're offering our knowing, which she is receiving vibrationally, and then she's looking for the physical word equivalent. And so there are many physical beings that want us to describe where we come from because you are currently focused in a time-space reality. But that implies that we also, from our non-physical perspective, are focused in a time-space reality. And we are not. We are in a timeless, spaceless reality.
So then Abraham's messages flow through Esther without her interference or conscious thought, according to Esther. She describes herself as this conduit, ensuring that the teachings come through as purely as possible. And Abraham emphasizes that the wisdom they share is not exclusive to Esther. You all have access to it, but only if you can get in tune with yourself enough. Within Abraham's teachings, and something they talk about a lot at their events, is the emotional guidance system. Abraham explains that emotions are a barometer of your alignment with your desires. So positive emotions indicate that you're moving towards what you want, while negative emotions signal resistance or misalignment, which kind of implies that you're doing something wrong, which in my opinion is just unfair. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but there is a concept that Abraham introduced called the vortex. The vortex represents a vibrational holding space where all of your desires and intentions exist. By aligning your energy with the vortex through joy and positive focus, you then allow your desires to manifest. So you have to be in the vortex and get into the vortex in order to manifest the things that you want. You don't need to work hard towards them. You don't need to make an action plan to get towards them. You just need to get into the vortex. Abraham also stresses the importance of allowing your desires to manifest by releasing doubt, fear, or negative focus, because resistance blocks the flow of manifestation while trust and positive emotion open up the path. And look, I believe in that concept as a concept, but I think it would be better to be phrased in a different way. Because I think what this gets down to, if you kind of take out the woo-woo aspect of it, in my opinion, is if you're feeling negative feelings, especially about yourself, you are less likely to feel the drive and empowerment and motivation to move forward towards your goals. But if you start feeling confident and feeling like you're capable of more, and you change your mindset to one of more open-mindedness and positivity, then yes, that might open the path towards you getting ideas of how you can move forward towards your goals, or gaining the confidence to go for that new job, or focusing on the positive aspects of yourself than the negative ones. So I think there is something to say for shifting your mindset. I think it becomes dangerous when you allow something like the law of attraction to basically come to mean that if you think a negative thought, bad things will happen to you. I think that's dangerous, because then whenever something bad does happen to you, even if it's completely out of your control, it's somehow your fault. And the thing is that Abraham's teachings have reached millions worldwide through those books, those workshops, those seminars, and online platforms. I mean, some of the titles are Ask and It Is Given, Money in the Law of Attraction, and The Vortex. These have become staples in the self-help and spiritual communities. And their teachings are particularly popular among individuals who are wanting to improve their relationships, their finances, and their health. These are people who are in one way or another very vulnerable. But the thing is, many followers often report transformative experiences, claiming that by applying Abraham's principles, they have actually manifested financial success, improved relationships, and personal fulfillment. So to me, this reinforces the idea that a cult or a cult-like group can actually have good things. There is always something positive involved in a cult. There's always a reason people are drawn to a group like this, because initially they do feel better. And look, I'm not saying Esther is a cult leader, but I am saying that this is someone who is potentially exploiting vulnerable people into spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, because they're claiming that they have untapped knowledge of the universe. And I don't think that that's fair. So in order to write and sell their books, rather than going through an actual company, they established their own Abraham Hicks publications so that they could produce their books and their recordings and materials that disseminate Abraham's teachings. What I think is so interesting about this is it really reminds me of Chad Daybell and how he created his own publishing company so that he could publish his own books and sell them as if he was speaking as God. This is very, very similar. Because what if no other publication would have wanted to sell these channeled books? Because in Esther or Abraham Hicks's books, she will type, I am not Esther writing this. I am channeling an entity and he's writing for me. I do not know what I'm writing. And in the intro of a book that you're reading, you think, oh, wow, this is fascinating. But one has to just ask, is it true? Can it be true? And I think why Esther and Abraham and Jerry have been so successful is because their concepts have worked for a lot of people. Many followers of Abraham's teachings report life-changing results, citing improved emotional states, financial successes, and better relationships. Apparently, the approach is so simple and seemingly practical that the messages resonate with a very wide audience and contribute to the enduring popularity of those Abraham Hicks publications. However, I have listened to so many of Esther Hicks' recordings and Abraham's responses to questions, and I have heard her say, oh, it's so frustrating when people complain about not getting their manifestations, but then I ask them if they're feeling better on a day-to-day basis after my teachings, and they say yes. So it's kind of like, okay, well, yeah, people are going to be feeling better if they're actively trying to focus on more positive aspects of their life, but is it really fair to say that in doing so, they're going to get the exact thing that they want? Because you can't say both. You can't say, oh, well, you're feeling better. It doesn't really matter if you manifest or not the thing that you want, when you've been guaranteeing basically that when people do what you do or do what you say to do, that they will manifest their perfect desire. You can't have both. So there are a lot of skeptics who question the validity of channeling and the origins of the teachings. A lot of critics argue that the principles, while they may be empowering, may also oversimplify very, very complex issues such as illness, poverty, or even systemic inequality. Oftentimes, practitioners of the law of attraction or this abundance mindset or forcing yourself into a positive environment fail to recognize that we are all born into different sets of circumstances, and those different sets of circumstances are going to change how we feel about ourselves. Some of the things that happen to us or have happened to us are not things we asked for or were at a vibrational match to, because then that means that every bad thing that has happened to us, whether it's we lost our credit card or someone got SA'd, that would mean that that is our fault. So I think that there's an unfairness and a problematic aspect to this where it almost becomes victim shamey or victim blamey. Furthermore, we have to recognize and acknowledge the presence of privilege when it comes to these kinds of practices. I believe it's unfair to say that everyone has the same guidance system when so many people are born into poverty or born into a lifestyle or a situation that feels really difficult for them to come out of. It feels really unfair to say that the same protector and driving force and entity that is protecting everyone and provides wisdom for everyone would ignore those who needed the help the most. Say someone is born with a genetic dysfunction or other illness that it's difficult to find a cure for. You're really going to tell that person that all they need to do to feel better is to think better about their situation and feel happy despite their circumstance? I just don't think that it is fair. And I do believe that there is an element of privilege that is participating in this way of thinking. And that's not even covering the scientific discrepancies and other types of criticism. Because one of the most common critiques is the skepticism about the authenticity of channeling itself. Many people question whether Esther is truly communicating with a group of non-physical entities or if she's simply offering her own spiritual insights under the guise of Abraham. A lot of skeptics argue that there's absolutely no scientific basis for the existence of Abraham or any kind of channeling, and they view it as a form of pseudoscience or even performance. The law of attraction itself has been criticized for lacking any scientific evidence, and cognitive psychologists and other experts argue that while positive thinking can improve mood and motivation, there is absolutely no empirical proof that thoughts alone can attract specific outcomes or alter reality in the way that Abraham teaches it. Some critics consider the concept to be a form of wishful thinking that actually oversimplifies the complexities of life, such as economic hardship, systemic inequality, and those health challenges. One of the more serious ethical concerns raised by critics is that the law of attraction promotes this victim-blaming mentality that we touched on earlier, because the teachings suggest that individuals are creating their own reality through their thoughts and feelings. So this implies that any hardship, like an illness, financial difficulty, relationship problems, are literally the fault of the person attracting negative circumstances because they're thinking negatively. And mental health experts warn that this mentality can lead to feelings of guilt, shame, and self-blame, particularly for individuals experiencing uncontrollable challenges like chronic illness or trauma. The idea that one's negative circumstances are a reflection of their internal state can place undue pressure on individuals and prevent them from seeking out actual, practical, helpful solutions or emotional support. Many critics argue that people who are struggling, whether it's financially, emotionally, or even spiritually, are probably more vulnerable to the promise of these quick fixes or easy solutions. Esther Hicks offers so many books and seminars and workshops, some of which come with a very hefty price tag. So critics start to question the ethics of selling any kind of spiritual guidance for profit, especially when the results of applying these teachings are very subjective and completely unverifiable. So from a psychological standpoint, there are also concerns that law of attraction can actually be very detrimental for several reasons, because there's this pressure to maintain positivity, and this can create an unrealistic expectation that leaves people feeling like they're failing if they have any negative emotion or thoughts. For example, people like me with anxiety, or even if you have depression or even trauma, this pressure to stay positive can actually exacerbate mental health struggles because people start believing that their emotional state is preventing them from manifesting their desires. So it's like this self-critical loop. How do you start thinking positively when everything that your spiritual guru is telling you is, well, it's your fault you're not doing this. It's your fault you're not attracting this into your life. It's your fault you're poor. It's your fault that you're broke. It's your fault you haven't reached your dreams. It's your fault that you're not in better shape. How does that make you feel better? And also there's the suppression of negative emotions. This is where toxic positivity kind of comes into play. The law of attraction's focus on avoiding negative thoughts and emotions can lead to emotional suppression, where individuals are trying so hard to push away or deny feelings like sadness or anger or fear when it's actually really important to process those feelings. Mental health professionals caution that this can be harmful because negative emotions actually serve a very important purpose in helping people process and even cope with difficult experiences. So ignoring these emotions can lead to more emotional distress and actually prevent genuine healing. And because the law of attraction promises that individuals can manifest anything they want through their thoughts, there is this risk of creating false hope. So when someone doesn't achieve the outcomes they desire, they feel really disillusioned and then blame themselves for not thinking more positively or positive enough. Or even, for example, I've had moments where this has happened to me thanks to Esther Hicks's teachings, because I used to listen to these presentations on YouTube just like on a loop while I was driving to and from work, just like all the time trying to get guidance. And something Esther would always say, or Abraham would always say, is expect the best outcome, expect the best thing to happen to you. So if I got an audition and then I got a call back and I would say, well, I'm going to book this, I'm going to get this opportunity, this is going to happen for me, and then it didn't happen, oh my gosh, since my expectation was up here, it felt like the fall was even further. But if I had just kept more of like a realistic, grounded feeling, I wouldn't have fallen so far. And I think that disappointment and frustration and even depression, it can really make your life just stressful and it feels painful, especially because you're constantly conditioned to just blame yourself. So while these practices, specifically the way Esther and Abraham teaches them, have been and can be transformative for many, the teachings have faced skepticism for their metaphysical claims and potential overcomplication of complex life challenges. But regardless, Abraham's influence has profoundly impacted the self-help movement and has inspired millions to embrace deliberate creation and the pursuit of joy. But what do you think? I know I've already shared my opinion many times in this video. I usually try to save my opinions for the end, but considering I would say I was a very staunch supporter and practitioner of the things that Abraham teaches. And I would have to say that although I think it's really good to meditate and get yourself into a place of positive thinking so that you can take action towards the things that you want, I also believe that it's vitally important to process all your negative feelings and never blame yourself for those feelings. Someone I love very, very dearly is diagnosed with anxiety. And I believe that there is a differentiation between having diagnosed anxiety and feeling anxious sometimes. Feeling anxious is actually like a normal emotion, but if you have chronic anxiety, that's when you might need some other coping mechanisms or even medication to help deal with it. But this person in my life who has diagnosed anxiety, they still, even though they're on medication for it to help with their anxiety, if they ever feel any amount of anxiety, they start like obsessively trying to analyze why they feel anxious instead of like allowing them to feel anxious or let themselves process their anxiety to try to understand what it's telling them about the situation that they're in. Because sometimes these feelings like fears or anxiety, they're actually protecting us in some way. They're creating a red flag. They're wanting us to ask questions. They're guiding us or telling us that maybe we're in a situation we don't want to be in, and that feeling is manifesting as something we call anxiety. And I think that since this person is also someone that I know has practiced law of attraction and manifestation and all of the things and meditation, it creates this shame loop anytime they feel any kind of anxiety or sadness. It's like they get even more upset, more shameful, and it's this anxiety spiral. And I think it's always easier for us to give other people advice than take our own advice, because I know I can do this too, but I have to constantly tell this person, like, it's okay to feel anxious sometimes. That's a normal reaction to the thing that happened to you. Sadness is a normal reaction to the thing that happened to you. And if you just pretend it didn't happen, then you're not really processing that thing that happened to you, because you didn't attract that. That's so unfair to yourself. You're not responsible for the actions that other people make that affect you. And you're certainly not to blame for the natural emotions that come up as reactions to the things that happen to you or the things people do to you. So I think that it's just really, really dangerous to pretend that you have to be in such a high vibrational state that nothing ever bothers you. I don't think that that is safe and fair to yourself, because I think it's that classic phrase of, if you look at everything through rose-colored glasses, it's impossible to see the red flags. And I think that we just have to approach everything with a level of skepticism. Yes, take what works for you, but don't get so obsessed and ingrained and focused on one practice, one behavior, one habit that it kind of like destroys your life in other ways or isolates you in certain ways. Just take care of yourself. Take what works and leave the rest. Am I going to stop meditating? No, because it makes me feel better. But I do it for a different reason than just getting into a high vibrational state. I do it more to just quiet my mind down and welcome myself into the day. And you can meditate for whatever reason you want to, or you don't have to. Totally fine, up to you. So I'm really curious what you guys think of this. Have you listened to Esther or Abraham? Have you appreciated the practices? Do they resonate? I'm so curious to know what you guys think. Let's keep all comments and debates polite and kind. Let's not attack anyone. I know when we talk about these types of things, it really feels like it's an attack on our identity or who we are, especially if we practice law of attraction or we practice some kind of, spiritual practice. We practice a spiritual practice. But I do think it's really important to hear constructive criticism of whatever we're practicing, because maybe it can teach us something. Let's all be open-minded in the comments. Anyways, guys, do not forget to click on that Amazon wish list, check out my Patreon, the merch, all of the cool things we have going on. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. And let me know what you'd like to see on my channel, you guys. Thank you so much. Stay safe out there, ask questions, and always stay skeptical. I will see you in my next video very soon. Bye.